One thing that is constantly said and even praised at times about the Mega Man series is that it's difficult, especially the ones on the NES. I would have to respectfully disagree. Yes, the original Mega Man can be difficult, but the series has been mostly getting easier as you go on. And yes, there are hard levels, but most of them are more annoying than hard. I mean, unless you like challenging yourself with something like a no damage run or a no miss run, then some levels become insanely brutal like Quickman Stage in Mega Man 2. Really, how easy the game is depends on what path you take and any rules you set up for yourself. And then there's Mega Man and Bass. I'm going to say this now before we get in. This is the hardest game in the entire series, without question. To use a term the internet loves to throw around, especially in online articles, this is the Dark Souls of Mega Man games. This difficulty is ironic when you consider why Keiji Inafune made the game anyway. Inafune stated that this game was meant mostly for children, especially those that couldn't play Mega Man 8 because they didn't have a PlayStation or a Saturn, but they were still fans of the series and had a Super Famicom still, and wanted to experience the Mega Man 8 play. I mean, I don't think that really worked here, but sure, let's go with that. Mega Man and Bass never actually got released in the West, likely because of the intense difficulty, until it was remade for the Game Boy Advance in time for Mega Man's 15th anniversary. But today we'll be playing the original on the Super Famicom version, mainly because the music sounds better and the smaller screen size and somewhat weaker power of the Game Boy Advance actually makes it inferior to the original in my opinion. So, just how difficult is this game anyway? Well, let's take a look. So the story here is that this robot named King has grown sick of humans ruling over robots, so he's decided that he's going to pull a Skynet and begin the Age of Machines, planning to start a country ruled by robots with no humans. No word on if he's going to have blackjack or hookers. And to do that, he plans on making an army of robots, so he breaks into the labs of Dr. Light and Dr. Wily and steals data on a large number of robots, destroying the labs and then leaving. So because of this, Mega Man decides to go after him. However, Bass ends up hearing news about King, and decides that he's going to prove he's the strongest robot around, so he goes off to fight him. Yeah, we've got two different scenarios here, and as a result, we have two different characters to play as. While not technically a first for the franchise, it is the first we get to have this happen in the classic series, at least outside of the arcades. You can choose to play as Mega Man, who can slide, charge the Mega Buster, and fire through walls, or you can play as Bass, who can double jump, rapid fire, aim in 7 directions with his only exception being directly downward, and dash. Our first level is the Robot Museum, looking very different from how it did in 7. It's an actual level this time around, with enemies and a boss fight rather than just a glorified mini-boss. What's interesting is that this level still has several references to previous Robot Masters, but in the stage design. There are several corridors filled with moles, just like in Metal Man Stage. There's this section with insta-kill lava, fire bars, and tackle fires, just like in Fireman's. There's a rising and falling boat in water, like the one in Blizzard Man's level with the submarine. And there's a section with rain that pushes you backwards, just like in Toad Man's stage. At the end, we see Proto Man in a verbal exchange with King.
You've gone too far, King! I won't allow you to violate the Robot Museum!
I've downloaded all the data of the battle robots. Now I can create an invincible robot army. Since you are a robot, you are qualified to join us if you want to.
Then King notices the character you choose behind Proto Man.
Seems that your friend has arrived. I have no time to waste on you anymore.
Wait, King!
Silence!
Proto Man attacks, but King dodges the attack and then cuts Proto Man in half. Then this scene depends on who you're playing as.
Proto Man!
It's just a scratch.
I'll take care of this. You go to Dr. Light for repairs.
Is that the robot who calls himself King? What a joke! Everyone knows that I am the mightiest robot in the world. I'll show him who deserves to be called King.
Either way, Proto Man warps out, and then we move to the right, where King decides to distract our heroes by forcing them to fight the Green Devil. Green Devil isn't nearly as time-consuming as it was in Mega Man 8. Here, it just stands in one spot, and you just shoot its eye until it's dead. Pretty simple, really. From here, we move on to the stage select, and it's far different in this one than it is in any other Mega Man before. Unlike in other games where you could fight any of the Robot Masters you wanted at the start, or at the very least fight 4, then have a mid-stage before fighting another 4, here, you can only choose 3 Robot Masters, and you unlock each of the other 5 after defeating one of the adjacent 3. So we get to choose between Cold Man, Ground Man, and Astro Man? As in the same Astro Man from 8? Huh. I guess King offered him the chance to join and he accepted. As much as I'd like to see if Astro Man's changed, it's actually better if we went after Cold Man first, especially since he's the easiest. Cold Man stage is, of course, an ice level. There aren't really any special gimmicks here, other than these ice platforms that crumble when you step on them, which were in Freeze Man stage. These platforms, however, are also placed over death spikes in various rooms, so you'll have to be quick on your feet. There's also Snowler, the mini-boss, who will try to suck you towards him before he shoots out 5 mini snowmen. These snowmen can be destroyed, but it can take a few hits to do so because they're really durable for some reason. At the end of the stage, you'll find Cold Man, who can be a bit annoying. His main pattern consists of creating a wall of ice and throwing it towards you, where it ricochets off the back and returns to him. But at the same time, he'll summon Moku Mokumos that will limit your jump height and will prevent you from firing your buster. With base, it's easy to get rid of them and still attack Cold Man, but it's a lot harder to do that with Mega Man, making it a slow process. Of course, if you stand in the same area for too long, Cold Man will try to freeze you in place for a few seconds before he sends ice at you. After you defeat Cold Man, you get the Ice Wall. It creates a tall block of ice that you can send forward or that you can use to jump on to get some extra height. It's kinda like the Mega Ball was in 8, only you get more height, and you can more easily control where you're going. It's also the weakness to Burner Man. This one's going to suck, isn't it? Burner Man stage is one I'm kind of glad I tackled early on because, oh lord, is it a pain. Actually, a lot of these stages could be considered pains, but this one was an especially egregious one. So, first of all, this stage has several gimmicks throughout it. There are walls that obscure pits and secret paths to optional items, and this can be annoying to navigate unless you're using base with his double jump. But if you're using base, you're going to be taking a while to destroy the enemies in this stage, because they can be quite durable, and the combination of that with the fact that they're often behind walls, and the fact that base has to stand still when firing on the ground means you're going to have to find a good position and know the timing of enemy moves in order to avoid them. So it'll actually take a bit longer to go through these enemies as base than it would be as Mega Man. In addition, Mega Man's slide can get him out of some nasty situations, so you can avoid some fights that might still take a while, like fighting the Psydeca. You can slide underneath it as Mega Man, but as base, you have to fight it. And then there's this room with a big telly which will come in and bomb the room, creating insta-kill fire, so you have to get out to a proper spot in order to avoid it, but those spots have Dodonpa cannons to deal with. Oh, and for added annoyance, there are no E-tanks in this game, just like there were none in 8, so if you're low on health or ammo, you need to hope that the enemies drop energy pickups of some kind. I haven't even gotten to Burner Man himself, have I? Okay, so Burner Man's a complete psycho for one. I mean, just look at this artwork of him. But the main point is that fighting him is almost as bad as his stage. Burner Man will start off the fight by dashing back and forth, meaning you can't effectively use the ice wall on him. You need to wait for him to stop so you can make the ice wall and then push it towards him so he falls into the spikes. He'll take a lot of damage as a result, and it'll reset his pattern. But Burner Man's not going to make it easy for you, especially since one of his attacks is to throw down a bunch of bear traps that sink into the ground and won't pop up until you step on them. So if you try to push the ice wall towards him, you might step on these traps and get paralyzed until he hits you. And it can be very hard to remember where these traps are amidst all the chaos. What's even worse about these bear traps is that you actually need to have Burner Man hit the spikes on screen, or else he won't take damage from them, but his pattern will still reset. And this guy isn't even the worst guy you have to fight, but it'll be a while before we get to that one. In the meantime, you get the Wave Burner for your trouble, which is a decent weapon. It's pretty strong, but it's very short range, and you can hold down the fire button to make the attack keep going, but it drains your energy as you do so. Anyone who's played the original Mega Man X will note that this is similar to the Fire Wave in that game, but there are two differences. 1, it moves up and down repeatedly, and 2, it has a far shorter range than the Fire Wave does. Moving on, our next target is Pirate Man, which I kinda wondered why Pirate Man was never a Robot Master before this game. Huh. Anyway, Pirate Man stage is pretty bog standard for a water level. Low gravity, spikes, annoying enemies that can move around freely in the water, exactly what you'd expect. Still better than Aquaman's level though. Pirate Man's fight is pretty easy, but it can be tricky if you're not prepared with his weakness, the Wave Burner. The entire fight takes place in a water-filled room that's constantly draining, and when it gets really low, Pirate Man will raise the water. He'll shoot these mines at you that you can jump over to avoid them, and he'll sometimes raise his bubble upwards so he can roll towards you. You can hit the bubble with the Wave Burner when he's about to do this to stop him, or while he's doing it in the middle to make him faceplant into the water. The Wave Burner actually works differently underwater since it'll create some sort of ripple current that's likely very hot because fire, and you can even use it to push these spike balls out of the way in Pirate Man stage. Huh. The fire weapon actually seems to work better underwater than it does on land. Go figure. Anyway, beating Pirate Man earns you the remote mine. You can fire it and control its vertical trajectory, and it will stick to whatever object it touches. Press the fire button again, and it'll detonate, making it a pretty good way to set up traps and to guarantee the explosion will hit your target. Speaking of, our next target is actually Ground Man, so let's go get him. Ground Man stage takes place in some ruins. There's actually quite a few gimmicks to talk about in this stage. Hey Star, guess what?
Is it another sand joke?
Maybe?
Yeah, no, leave me out of this. The joke's old, like 3 years too old.
Okay then. Yeah, this stage has lots and lots and lots of sand.
I don't like sand.
The first half of the level seems to be mostly sand, with sandfalls that limit your jump height, quicksand that can kill you but also being helpful since you need it to get under one of these walls, and just sand being everywhere. But then, after you fight Mother Muka Muka Day, which is once again much easier with base than it is with Mega Man, there's not really that much sand. Heck, the fight with Mother Muka Muka Day is in compacted dirt, not sand. There's also this room with Cow Nagana. You have to destroy them to get through, but every Cow Nagana you destroy causes this instant death spike roller to come towards you. But if you destroy these Cow Nagana R's, not only will the roller not come towards you, but it will also unlock the door to the next room. Wait. Ruins, Cow Naganas, and instant death spike roller, those are all things in Swordman's stage. Yep, all of these stages reuse assets from the stages in Mega Man 8. Of course, there's original stuff like some of the enemies, but for the most part, it's all stuff borrowed from 8. The last stretch before fighting Ground Man involves these things. Dig moles. Dig moles will pop up and start trying to eat the ground and create bottomless pits. They're annoying and honestly it's easier to just avoid them. Ground Man himself has moves that are easy to figure out, but not necessarily easy to avoid since his timing can make it hard for you to avoid him. If he digs into the ceiling, he actually uses his easiest attack to avoid. All you have to do is run towards him and slide or dash once you're under the extended earth so you can avoid his large drill attack. Then run back and do the same. If he digs under the ground, he could pop up almost anywhere, but he seems to prefer doing so away from you. He'll also jump towards you before turning into a drill dozer and driving around. This is probably his hardest of his attacks to avoid, because he could turn back into his humanoid form at any second. It's a tough fight, but not an impossible one, and placing the remote mine on him will not only have it explode on him if he tries to dig, but its large radius and decent explosion time will mean it's more than likely for Ground Man to get hit, unless you miss by a country mile. When Ground Man's defeated, you get the spread drill, which starts off with one drill that's big and powerful, but slow and doesn't go far. By pressing the fire button, you can split the drill into 2 smaller but faster drills, and then pressing it again after that gives you 4 even smaller but even faster drills from the 2 drills that you had before. After we beat Ground Man, the next stage belongs to Tengu Man. So, he defected too, huh? Tengu Man's stage is relatively easy as base, but as Mega Man, yeah, it's a pain. The stage starts with auto-scrolling, which already is something that annoys me, but that's only for one room. The problem is that the stage has a lot of tricky jumps that make navigating this stage for Mega Man a lot more difficult than it is for base. In fact, the entire game seems to be made to play with bass in mind, while Mega Man has the most frustrating time playing this game. About half of the stage takes place outside, while the rest takes place inside with tellies constantly respawning in various locations. There are also these pipes with cracks in them like we're in Waveman stage, only when you shoot them, they cause wind to start coming out, pushing you back. Tengu Man's fight is relatively easy compared to his stage, even with Mega Man. It's actually quite different than his fight from 8. He still has Tornado Hold, only this time it pushes you back instead. He also will try to fly up to you and sling his fan at you. But if you use the spread drill when he stops moving, he'll actually faceplant into the ground, stopping him from using whatever attack he was going to. The weapon you get from him this time is the Tengu Blade. It works in two ways depending on which attack you use. If you use it with the attack button, he'll send a wind projectile out that can ricochet off walls, but if you try to slide or dash, it'll create a blade in front of you as a short-range attack. From there, the next one we need to go after is Magic Man. His stage has lots of trains, and that's about it. They're not everywhere, but there aren't any real gimmicks here besides this one room with blocks that rotate every time those guys from Clown Man stage ring their bells. I should also mention that this section was rather annoying, because enemies attacked as soon as they scrolled on screen, and you often couldn't really react in time when they fired at you, unless you knew they were there. This is part of what makes the game so hard. A lot of the stuff that can hit you can do so in rather unfair ways, and it's hard to know what's coming unless you've gone through this game before. This means enemies can sometimes knock you into pits or deal a lot of damage to you quickly. To make things even worse, not only are there no tanks just like in 8, but your ammo doesn't refill if you die like it could in 8. Heck, it doesn't even refill if you complete a stage without getting a weapon like it could in other games, so you need to be conservative with weakness weapons. Fighting Magic Man is a fight that can get extremely hectic if you aren't prepared. He'll throw things at you like these balls of energy or Peppy eggs, as well as some magic cards that can actually steal your health. The Tengu Blade is his weakness, and it gets rid of him pretty quickly. Still, even using his weakness can be tough, and when I had to re-record this fight, I actually ran out of Tengu Blade both times, and had to fight Magic Man Buster only. Defeating him earns you the magic card, which can be fired directly upward, and it'll boomerang back with items. It's funny how Magic Man is both weak to and the weakness of the Robot Masters returning from Mega Man 8, because the magic card is for Astro Man. Astro Man's stage is pretty easy, all things considered. He has some moments that would seem annoying, like this wall that spawns enemies or Yoku blocks, but it was actually pretty easy getting through his stage, even with Mega Man. The fight with Astro Man himself, however, can be annoying if you're not paying attention. His weakness, the magic card, can hit him even when he's above you, but he'll sometimes try to drop onto your head, which can be pretty painful. He'll also make portals for these enemies to pop out of, which isn't nearly as much of a problem since the enemies are easy to destroy, and you can't fall in the portals to your death. But his main method of causing problems is by making copies of himself to send attacks after you while moving back and forth. You can easily get rid of the copies with the magic card, however, so it's not a problem. Beat Astro Man, and you'll get the copy vision, which, well, makes a copy of yourself to fire forward while you can be off doing other things. Only one Robot Master left, and that's Dynamo Man. The major gimmick of this stage are these conveyor belts. If you run on them, they'll start out slow, but get faster the longer you stay on. But that doesn't really seem to be a problem if you're jumping while you're riding them, since your feet aren't touching them. The mid-boss of this stage is the Move Cannon. You have to destroy 3 of these eyes on each side. This fight actually feels harder for Bass than it does for Mega Man, who can charge up a shot and can slide under this sweeping attack. Also, right after the mini-boss are these rooms covered in darkness with bubble bats. There's a light that'll circle around the room so you aren't just running through these parts blind. And then there's Dynamo Man himself, and he's an absolute pain. He'll jump to the opposite side and slide back and forth, and what he does from here varies. He'll send these gyros after you, which are once again easier to avoid with Mega Man than they are with Bass, as well as create these electric balls that will go after you, though Mega Man can slide under the lower ones, and surround himself in balls of lightning to unleash his lightning bolt attack, which feels very difficult to dodge. His weakness is the copy vision, which will keep him from using the lightning bolt, destroy the gyros, and get the lightning balls to go after it. But all that gets thrown out the window when he decides to jump up to the upper center of the screen and start healing himself. He'll heal a point of energy every half second or so, and the only way to stop him is to destroy these electrical handles. Both of them. And you have to go to the opposite sides of him to do so. It's easier to do this with the copy vision, but it can still take a while, and he'll do this whenever he starts getting lower on health. He's easily the most frustrating Robot Master in this game to fight. After you beat him, you'll get the lightning bolt, your typical screen nuke attack. Although, if you look closely, it's actually spelled lightning bolt. Guess they decided to exclude a letter after Mega Man X got to borrow a letter for their Horming torpedo. Anyway, now that we have all the weapons, there's one more stage before King's stages, and it's actually a bonus stage. Going into this cave area, there are places where we can use the Robot Master weapons to destroy these crystals. Destroy them, and you get a giant screw worth 100 normal screws. Yeah, the shop is back to normal like it was in 7, only this time, you can buy some neat goodies. The thing is, a lot of these abilities have to be activated in the pause menu for you to use them, and if you do, you can't use any of the others at the same time. For example, there's an item that lets Base restore weapon ammo when he gets hit, but he can't use it at the same time as the energy saver, so you have to choose what's most needed for the current situation. Moving on, we reach the King levels, and surprisingly, there's only 3 of them. All 3 of them were very long, but the first one isn't really that memorable, honestly. Like, I can't really remember the specifics of the stage. I do remember that they were all rather complicated and a bit cheap in some cases with enemy placement, but that's not really any different from normal gameplay. The boss is the Atetamino we had to deal with in Wily Stage 1 in Mega Man 8, only this time, he's on a pulley system. He'll keep his head in while you fight, but if you pull him up high enough by standing on the platform long enough, his head will pop out so you can actually damage him. But you need to also be aware of the little enemies that pop out of the lava underneath the platform, and the lava itself. He'll also fire missiles at you, and sometimes this Munking A will come down and start throwing coconuts at you. The best thing I found was to have the platform go down as far as you need before he'll expose his head, and then shoot at him with the copy vision while trying to keep the head in line with the shots. Do that, and you'll beat him pretty easily. Just make sure not to fall in the lava after you kill him. Stage 2 is pretty long as well, but this time it was easy to remember what happened since it was 4 boss fights in this one stage, and 2 of them didn't even have health bars. The first boss fight was against this tank thing that had several weapons that you need to disable using the remote mines and lightning bolt. The second stage has you use the spread drill to fight this jet thing, while also using the remote mines to destroy its giant laser attack. The third boss fight is against King himself.
Welcome. I never thought I would meet you here. I suppose that I have underestimated you, but your journey will come to an end here. You should feel honored to be destroyed by the King.
And so we fight, and by that I mean King is invincible. The entire fight, King will use his shield to protect himself, except when he decides to taunt you or to attack you by launching X's at you. If you attack his shield, it'll fire a laser at you in a counterattack. After a short amount of time, Proto Man will show up and attack King, but unfortunately Proto Man didn't seem to hear when I said not to attack King's shield.
Seems I have no other choice but to resort to extremes. I'll put my whole energy into this next shot.
Wait, if you do that, you may overheat or explode.
Proto Man, you don't need to do that. I'll destroy King by myself.
I owe this guy, and now it's time to pay him back.
Funny, but so very reckless.
Big Bang Strike!
And then he unleashes a powerful shot that makes the screen go white. When our vision goes back, King is kneeling but his shield is gone while Proto Man... Ooh, that does not look good.
This can't be.
What? What power?
Proto Man, let's evacuate now. Can you put your arm across my shoulders?
What are you doing? Are you going to waste my sacrifice? You must finish him for me!
Proto Man stole the spotlight.
Base, the show is not over yet.
Enough! That's one down, and now you're next.
And so now we fight King for real, and I couldn't really figure out a pattern for him. Why? Because I used Energy Saver and Lightning Bolt, which pretty much crippled him and comboed him until I won. It was pretty easy, honestly. Anyway, King speaks to our heroes.
You won. Why do you fight so hard for these pitiful humans? Robots are superior to humans.
But it is humans who created us.
Superiority is not the point.
Maybe, or maybe not. Just put me out of my misery. But before that, we'd better let him evacuate. That way he has a chance to be repaired. Don't worry about him. I beamed him out of the castle. After all, I am the Lord of Robots. That means I don't want to see our species destroyed.
King, let's evacuate together. Dr. Light can heal your wound.
Before I go, you must tell me something. Who is your father? Who created you?
What if I say it's Dr. Wily? I'll explode if anyone but Dr. Wily tries to operate on me.
What?
Dr. Wily created you?
King, what happened to you? Are your logic circuits damaged? Your enemy is right in front of you!
I don't understand. Why do robots have to fight each other for the sake of humans?
Piece of junk! I'll boost your brainwashing level.
Then a machine comes down that turns King purple. Well, he breaks the wall behind him and runs in. Well, looks like we've got to go fight him. Again. When we go into the room, we see the tank and jet thing combine and then put King into the cockpit. This one's a bit of a pain. It's not difficult. Okay, maybe it is a little bit, but it's mostly just annoying. You have to hit the head where King is using the wave burner, but while Base can get up there just fine with the treble boost, Mega Man has to use this platform and then jump at the right time to hit it. It's a little easier when King tries to charge you, but the problem is that the tank form will try to fire bombs down on you, and the jet form will try to hit you with this annoying chasing attack, and sometimes try to hit you with an unavoidable attack that it used when you fought it originally. So you have a bunch of things you have to manage all at once. Eventually, King does go down.
Ugh. You should leave this place now. This place could explode at any moment.
King, what are you going to do?
King, you must come with me.
Of course. I'll leave this place too, but only after you go first.
And so our heroes teleport out. However...
He's gone. I wish I had a teleportation system in me. Goodbye, Base. Goodbye, Mega Man. Don't let other robots suffer my sad fate. I'm counting on you.
We have one more stage left. Wily stage. The stage is the Robot Master rematch stage, only this time it's very much like the original Mega Man's or the original Mega Man X's way of doing rematches. You have to fight the Robot Masters in a specific order, and then there are regular levels with enemies and the like in between the rematches. The order, for anyone interested, is Cold Man, Astro Man, Dynamo Man, Pirate Man, Burner Man, Magic Man, Ground Man, and then Tengu Man.
Damn that king! How dare he disobey his maker! It is a good thing that Mega Man took care of him for me. And now I have regained control of my laboratory castle. That junk has been dealt with thanks to you. Now I'll put a restraining bolt on you before you go out of control. Time to get back to my plan of world domination again. Once this is installed, everything will be under control.
You pretended to be assaulted by King in order to have me take care of him? I'll destroy you for using me!
What impudence! Are you trying to disobey your maker? I'll show you who is boss. But first, I will personally eliminate Mega Man. Are you ready to be eliminated, Mega Man?
So now we get to fight Wily in the same Wily machine he used last time, only with some new tricks. The laser can't be stopped, but it can be jumped over. The machine will also shoot missiles, as well as charging at whoever it is you're playing as. It's a pretty easy fight, even if you're likely to take damage. And then there's the Wily capsule. It functions similarly to the one in 8, only you have to hit Wily's head, or else the attack doesn't count. And his weakness is the magic card, meaning you have to get it just the right spot to hit Wily. It took me a while with both Base and Mega Man, but eventually he goes down. Wily of course surrenders, so let's see what happened after. Base's ending comes first. Base is angry at Wily for what happened.
Why did you deceive me?
Forgive me! I just wanted to test your ability.
What? What do you mean?
I've always believed that you are the strongest robot in the world. but you have not been able to defeat Mega Man. So I began to lose my faith in you. And then I had the idea that I could create a mightier robot. So I created King. But since you defeated King, I now know the truth. You are the mightiest robot in the world.
What a lame excuse.
Bess, let me show you something. This is the plan for King the Second. Join with King the Second, and together you two will be invincible.
Base stops and the screen goes black, but then suddenly...
You never learn, Wily.
This voice, Proto Man.
I won't let this happen.
Oh no, my beautiful plan ruined. Base, destroy Proto Man. What are you waiting for, Base? I said destroy Proto Man.
Base, you don't need to hesitate, do you? You are not a slave to Wily, are you? You are strong, that's true. But you can't defeat Mega Man. Do you know why? It is because you have nothing to fight for. What have you been fighting for, Base? You have only fought for yourself, right?
Silence! Just get lost!
Farewell.
What I fought for? That's ridiculous. I don't need a reason to fight. I have and am going to fight, only to destroy Mega Man.
Speaking of, how is Rock doing after all of that? Well, he returns home to be greeted by everyone, but seems rather upset.
Mega Man, welcome home.
Good work, Mega Man. Huh? What's troubling you? You don't look happy.
I wish I was a little more efficient. Then I could have saved King.
Don't let it get you down. Why don't you show him that roll?
Here, it's a letter for you.
A letter? From who?
Isn't this seal familiar to you?
The two siblings read the letter.
Dear Mega Man, it took our battle for me to realize that I was wrong. From now on, I'd like to atone for my crimes against the people whom I caused such pain and suffering. I pledge my loyalty to world peace until the day the faith of the robots is restored. If we were to meet again, I hope it will be as friends and not as enemies. Your friend, King.
King is alive?
I wish him the best of luck.
Well, a shame we've never seen King since then, but oh well. Mega Man and Base is not a very good game. Its difficulty is certainly much higher, and it can be rather unfair in how difficult it is. But I wouldn't really call it a bad game. The Robot Master selection is alright, I guess. Well, I do like the idea for each of the new Robot Masters, except for maybe Cold Man, who's just boring. They're just sort of okay in how most of them are executed. The weapon selection is pretty fun, but there are one or two weapons that aren't really that interesting to use. Sadly, this was the last game in the Classic series that was released. That is until 2008, when the Classic series came back and in a familiar style. But we'll talk about that next time, when we discuss the return to form that is Mega Man 9.